Good morning, everybody. This is Mark Hamblin. I'm the chair of NC East Alliance, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. I'm excited about this webinar. It's very timely with people looking for employees, and it's a win-win for employers and also the folks that we're talking about today. Just want to take I'm not going to get into a lot of introduction right now. I'll let the speakers and the panelists do that themselves. But I do want to take a couple minutes here to just thank our sponsors. You know, we our funding as an organization comes from our sponsors, and we're excited to present these webinars. We feel like we want to present relevant and pertinent and timely webinars and topics that will impact Eastern North Carolina, and we feel like this is one of them. And hope that you'll join us in the future for some more. But just want to thank our sponsors for today. It's Vidant Health, Integrated Financial Holdings, ECU. Those are our platinum sponsors. Our gold sponsors are Bull & Company Media Works, Electricities, Dominion Energy. Our silver sponsors are the Edenton Chowan Partnership, Evolve, the law firm of Kilpatrick Townsend, Martin Marietta, PNC Bank, Duke Energy, the Port of Virginia, and Nutrien. And also there's I believe we have one of the individuals that has supported us for years. It's Mary Lilly, I believe. And I just want to throw this in there too, that we're always looking for new partners, and we also welcome private and corporate donations to our organization, so we can do this and some other things that will be subjects to further webinars. Also, I will just take a second here to introduce our speakers. We have Sarah Bernhardt and Victor HINNANT from Commerce. We've got LAKESHIA Jones, who's the Director of Community Work Programs in the Division of Adult Correction and Juvenile Justice, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. And then the CEO of Penco Products, Tom KULIKOWSKI, who's going to kind of give us really a testimony to how this program has worked for Penco. So with that, I will throw it over to you, Trey, and you can introduce our first speaker.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Before we dive into the speakers, I'm going to quickly run through the Zoom functions for today. At the end of the webinar, we will have a question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question, you can click that Q&A box, type in your question and submit it, and we'll address it at the end of the webinar. If you'd like to ask a question live, you can use that raise hand icon to the right. Click it, we'll unmute you, and you can ask your question live. The chat box will also be available if you'd like to type in your question there. And there may be some resources or links that we'll submit in the chat box from the speakers, so keep an eye on that. If at any point today you need to adjust your audio settings during the webinar, you can do so by clicking that audio setting tab in the bottom left. You can also check your mic if you plan to ask your question live. Finally, if you need to check your viewing options for today, you can do so by clicking the viewing options tab in the upper middle and check your settings there. If you need to enter and exit full screen mode at any point during the webinar, you can do so by clicking those 4 arrows in the top right. And I believe that is everything for me. So now I introduce our moderator today, Sarah Bernhardt, our partner from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. She's the existing industry expansions manager for the Northeast region. Sarah?
For those of you just joining, thanks, Trey, and hello and welcome. As Trey said, my name's Sarah Bernhardt, and I'm an existing industry expansions manager for the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. I work mainly with manufacturers and distributors in the 17 counties in the northeast corner of the state. Thank you for taking the time out to be here with us today. I'd like to introduce today's first presenter. LAKESHIA Jones is Director of Community Work Programs for the Division of Adult Correction and Juvenile Justice at the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. She has over 26 years of service in state government and is based in Raleigh. LAKESHIA has degrees in both criminal justice and theology. Take it away, LAKESHIA.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and I am so glad to be a part of this forum today. I feel very strongly about the work release program because it is a proven solid reentry program for the state of North Carolina. So today I'm just going to briefly talk about the program, and I know you have a speaker that will give his own experiences with the work release program. But in North Carolina, we were one of the first states to implement the work release program in the United States. It's a solid reentry program in which it is, like the speaker said before me, a win-win situation. We have, along with work release, we usually typically have between 1,100 and 1,200 participants in the program. Many marketable job skills are developed or enhanced through prison programs such as the inmate construction program, correctional enterprise, and apprenticeships. Right now we have over 40 bona fide apprenticeships throughout the state of North Carolina at the various prisons. So that means with the apprenticeship, you get all kinds of solid skills from our workforce, be it laundry, welding, construction, food service, and a large number of others. We have 35 prisons that participate in the work release program, and they cover all 4 regions of the state. And they are Eastern region, Central, South Central, and the Western region. I'm showing a picture of some of those prisons right now, and it's broken down by the population. So whether you would like to take advantage of our male population or female population, we should be able to have you covered. Right here are the Eastern region and Central region.
LAKESHIA,
Yes.
we're not seeing your presentation.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I hit start video, share screen. Okay. Can you see it now?
Still can't see it.
No.
Share.
There you go.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not. There
Okay.
you go.
Okay. So accessing the untapped talent pool, which is the work release program, and we spoke of that. We spoke of how we have over 40 bona fide apprenticeships within the prison system. We typically have between 1,100 and 1,200 offenders assigned to the work release program. Right now, because of the pandemic effects to our population and how we handle business, we're slowly building that number back up again. Now, to combat the spread of the virus, the prison system had to come up with something, and they came up with the solution of only those people who are fully vaccinated will be screened for participation in the work release program at this time. It's not to say it may not change later, but for now, only those who are fully vaccinated are allowed to be participating in the program. As I mentioned, we have 34 prisons that cover all 4 regions of North Carolina. So whether it be Eastern, Central, South Central, or Western, we should be able to have you covered. Whether you need male workers or female workers, we should have that covered as well. Our largest population of work release workers and slots are in the Western region. Now, that doesn't say if you're in the Eastern region or South Central that we can't accommodate you, but it just has more of our participants are in the Western region or more facilities. The basic criteria for a person to participate in the program is 1, they must be in minimum custody with 5 years or less to serve. Most of the time they have 2 years or less to serve when they're on the program. They cannot have any felony detainees or awaiting trial for felony charges. They can have no major rule violations in the past 3 months. And right now, priority placement are for the fully vaccinated. When we talk about the work release program, we mentioned that it's a win-win. One, that the offenders in our population are currently assigned to jobs and programs to learn marketable job skills. They oftentimes work in the community for the Department of Transportation, for municipalities or towns or cities. They also work in our correctional enterprise plant. Now with our correctional enterprise plant, that means you have people that are skilled workers that have become familiar with the factory setting, be it laundry, a sewing plant, a packaging plant where they drive forklifts or they train on forklift driving, or be it our inmate construction program, in which the participants learn all kinds of skills dealing with the construction program. When an incarcerated individual is on a work release program, they pay back to the state. And when we're at full capacity of maybe around 1,100 offenders working, that puts $110,000 per week back into the state budget. That's not including what the participants can clear up before they go home, which are their fines and fees, the support for their family, their child support, restitution, victims fund. All of this is to better prepare them for a more successful reentry back into the community. Different skill sets that they have. Like I mentioned, we have over 40 apprenticeships that they have access to, be it food service, and you can look at this list that we have here, ranging from food service to laundry services. We also have Braille apprenticeship. We have participants who are learning Braille or have learned Braille and read it very well and do a fantastic job with that as well. Now, how do we access this untapped labor pool? It requires, one, that you are providing a value service to the community in which we serve. Your place of business can't be of such a personal nature that it isn't providing any kind of value to the community. We have an application, which we call an employee interest form. It's a basic form, which all you're doing on that form is just introducing your company to us. You're telling us basic information about your company and how it flows. A point of contact, an email address, a phone number, what your expected wages will be, what your intended job that you have for our population, because we like to know what they will be required to do for you. You must have some type of workman's comp insurance as well. And you must pay compatible wages to the community. Basically, you have to pay at least minimum wage to our population, but many pay more than minimum wage. And you must understand that with the population that will become your employees, that communication is essential. Communication is key to keep everything flowing smoothly. If there's a change in the work schedule, we need you to communicate with the prison staff to let them know what the change is, so there won't be any kind of hiccups or surprises that come up with our population, because our population that are granted work release privileges have proven themselves that they can maintain themselves out in the community. But even with that being said, we have to know where our workers are going to be. Our workers don't have to be based at one location. You may have a company that has different work sites. As long as you are communicating with the prison staff to inform them of where our population will be at on any particular day, is usually a go. If for some reason there's something that comes up that you need to contact the prison staff, we're only a phone call away. When you are going through the screening process to become a work release employer, they will provide training for you. And that's basically a 1 to 2 hour training where you learn the basic do's and don'ts of the program. And when I mention do's and don'ts, that's just to remind you of what our requirement is to be their guardian while they're incarcerated, and what we can and cannot allow, meaning no smoking, no drinking, no alcohol, which I know you all employers would love that. We kind of run like a check and balance, because what we're doing is providing the avenue for the offenders to gain meaningful employment prior to their release from prison, and in hopes of them maintaining that employment if at all possible. So our offenders, imagine if you were incarcerated, anytime your employer says they want you to work, you'd be right there, because our population, when they're released for work, they're actually released from prison to work. So many times they have 10-hour shifts. They may even have 12-hour shifts on occasion, but it must be full-time employment. And did I cover everything? Is there anything in addition that, are we doing questions and answers at the end, correct?
Correct. We'll wait till the end to do
Okay.
any questions.
Okay. Well, that's my information that I have to share with you today. If you have any questions or concerns at any point, even afterwards, and I know he has my contact information that that Mr. Goodson will give to you, but here it is on the screen as well. Feel free to email me or call me at any time. I will gladly send out the employee interest form to anybody who inquires about the program, and other additional documents to further explain the work release program and the benefits of the program.
Thank you, LaKeSHIA. That was great information on the work release programs and the benefits that they provide to the workers, the employers, and the state. That's really, a wonderful program, and I hope some of our webinar watchers will take advantage of it. Our next presenter is Victor HINNANT. Victor is a regional reentry specialist with the Division of Workforce Solutions at the North Carolina Department of Commerce. That's a position he has held for the past 17 years. His territory covers the Northeast region, and he is based in Greenville. Victor is a graduate of Winston-Salem State University. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. As she said, my name is Victor HINNANT, and I'm kind of wanting to give you an idea about how Commerce is involved in helping employers integrate individuals with backgrounds to be more productive and more valuable for your company, and to give you the ability to feel a little bit more comfortable about making a second chance decision for an individual who's qualified for your positions. The history of this process has started out in 2010, and then the legislature dealt with it, and they wanted to provide resources and supports for folks returning so that we can reduce our recidivism rate. Out of that mindset came our team, our reentry team, and we built up to about 7 staff members of various backgrounds and qualifications. At one point, we even had a staff member who also was just as involved in the beginning, in the early parts of his life. We're not individuals who are going to go around and get on the soapbox and talk about why you should give a person a second chance. We know that employers have to have a pragmatic reason for putting someone in their facility that will be productive for the products that they're providing. So basically, I just want to do the numbers. In other words, in 2017, it is the statistics that I have right now. I'm sure that in those the numbers I'm giving you are fluid. About 138,000 individuals were just as involved and under supervision. You can imagine that if those individuals were not able to find gainful employment, how much that would cost the taxpayers on supporting and dealing with it. And also it increases the victim pool if we don't find a pathway to redemption for that group of folks. Every year, the prison system releases approximately 24,000 individuals. In other words, people don't stay in prison. They serve their sentence and then they're released. And the question is, then what? Okay, now, a lot of employers express concerns about bringing an at-risk individual within their confines of their facility. And we found that the numbers don't support any higher risk of hiring individuals with background. If anything, you have an individual who you understand where they come from, some of the bad choices that they've made, and you can give them an opportunity to explain the circumstances and use your professional instincts about whether or not that person is sincere in their desire to want to rehabilitate themselves and to reintegrate into the community successfully and safely. Okay, so we in the reentry team look at all the aspects of what we need to do as a team to help the community reintegrate these folks. We organize volunteer professional pools, which we call reentry roundtables, to discuss the resources that are available, to do problem solving about things that are barriers to the individual, like housing and transportation and that kind of thing. And we talk about the uniqueness of the experience of the individual coming out of prison. At one point during our research, we found out there was over 1,000 collateral sanctions against individual with criminal backgrounds. In essence, that made every sentence that an individual got while being in the judicial system a life sentence. In other words, you go to jail, you serve your time, and then you're released. And there are all these obstacles and barriers to regaining some sense of dignity, some sense of productivity in the community. And it perpetuates a roundtable of thinking that, I have no chance. And of course, that requires them to go into survival mode. That creates a victim. But we really don't want to think about that in the sense that that's an insurmountable problem. We also know that as employers, you have to think in a pragmatic way. So we decided, meaning the Commerce Department and the state of North Carolina, decided that we needed to emphasize some of the benefits that we offer to reduce some of the risk factors that you have to deal with hiring someone with a known criminal background. For example, we will provide for you bonding for the individuals for $5,000 to $25,000, depending on your desire. That is an insurance policy, of course, to prevent some of the risk factors of hiring, or to protect you from some of the risk factors of hiring individuals with backgrounds. What does that mean? That means that if that person commits a crime like theft or embezzlement or something that holds you liable to a customer in terms of their loss, we will cover that loss from $5,000 up to $25,000, depending on the agreement you make with Commerce. Now, how quickly can we do this? We can do this within 24 hours. If you find an individual who's a candidate that you want to give a second chance, and within 24 hours of your request, you can receive a bond for that individual, and that individual will be covered from the time we fill out the application. Within 2 weeks, you'll receive a policy that shows that that individual is covered. This is a nationwide policy. It's a federal policy, and it's not just a state policy. So you can feel a little bit more comfortable. Now, how long will we cover you? We'll cover you for 6 months. And that gives you an opportunity to see whether or not you can invest in that person and you feel confident that that person has truly rehabilitated, and you feel more apt to insure them under your policy, or maybe request from the insurance company that provided the free bond to insure that person further. That would be totally up to you. We also provide tax credits. Now, in the tax credits, we cover quite a few populations: the veteran population, youth population, the underemployed, and we also the economically disadvantaged. And of course, in the tax credits, we cover felons or individuals who have criminal backgrounds. You can get up to, for that particular population, you can get up to $24,000 in a tax credit. And the beauty of that tax credit, for me, as a former business owner, is the fact that you don't have to use that tax credit the year that you hire that individual. You can hold that tax credit for up to 10 years according to the policy. But that's one of those issues that we can discuss once you talk with some of the representatives of commerce, and so you can determine how much of a tax credit you can receive. Veterans get a higher tax rate. And we will be sending you a list of all of the details of the benefits after this session. Is basically the PowerPoint that we would use in equitable hiring seminar, but I wanted to make sure that I stay within the guidelines of the time because I know we have to value your time. Okay, we also have a policy at NC Works, and Commerce is got 100-day no fault. For those of you who are hiring folks, you know that you have to pay payroll tax for an individual, and if the individual leaves your organization abruptly or doesn't comply to your policies or is not easily trained and you felt that you could not continue employment with this individual, you have 100 days of that first 100 days of employment where if you decide that that individual is not going to clearly integrate appropriately in your company, then you can apply to us and say, look, this individual just couldn't get it. He or she couldn't be trained. And you have 100 days to determine that, which is a usual time that most people have their first 90 days of engagement of employment. And so you will not be penalized for that purpose. Okay. I also wanted to discuss with you, quite frankly, some of the things that we've run into in terms of making sure that you do have an opportunity to meet these individuals with backgrounds. In other words, if a person has a criminal background and you have that box on the application asking them about that, we found that about 50% of the participants who apply for your particular job openings will not go any further after they see that box. Now, they may be very well qualified for the job that they're applying for, but they just feel like they're not going to get the opportunity to sit in front of you and give you an issue. So we've asked a lot of employers to consider banning that box, to taking that box off of the application. Just recently, the governor has issued an executive order not putting the box on the state application. And why are we doing that? Well, that gives you a chance to meet the person. If that person on paper is qualified for an interview, then you give them an interview. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do a background check. What it means is that you get an opportunity to see this human being and their rehabilitative history so that you'll know that you're getting a qualified individual who truly understands the opportunity that you're about to get them and the value of it. Now, the city of Durham and the city of Durham and Durham County has banned the box, and you may want to call their HR to find out how productive this was for them. The turnover rate was less than 2% the last time we discussed it, and the morale of the overall population of the employees, was as high as it's ever been. Productivity was as high as it's ever been. So this gives you that opportunity. We also, in our efforts in the roundtable discussions and political discussions, decided that employers still have a risk factor when hiring folks. And the bottom line is that if they hire somebody with a background, they may be liable for something that they do. The bond may not be enough. So we now have a new law in place called Certificate of Relief. It's not an expungement law, it's a protection mechanism we have for employers. The certificate of relief is a court system certifying that that individual is not likely to reoffend. But if they do, the court system will protect you from any negligent hiring issues. Okay, and an individual who is eligible for certificate of relief is usually low-level misdemeanors or felonies, and they have to be free of any legal responsibilities such as probational fees and being actually on probation. So 100 immediately after they've met those requirements, they may be able to petition the courts for a certificate of relief. So if an individual applies for a job with you, you can see if they have a certificate of relief or if they're eligible for certificate of relief, and it will give you a little bit more comfort in giving that qualified individual an opportunity. I don't want to belabor anything now. I just want you to understand that we are trying our best to make sure that we understand both sides of the table. We understand that individuals who have criminal backgrounds need a second chance. We also understand that if employers give those individuals a second chance, there may be some liability issues there. And we're doing what we can to release you and reduce those liabilities. But in closing, I'd like to say this. Most of us understand that any individual that walks through your door is a risk. Well, the known and the unknown are more or less fighting each other. But the unknown, in my estimation, is the most dangerous. The known is something you can work with, something you can inquire about. But either way, we in North Carolina want to support all employers in their efforts to restaff their companies and do whatever we can to get this untapped labor force back on track so that we can reduce the cost of taxation and the cost of incarceration. Thank you for your time.
Victor, thank you for that helpful review of the reentry program and the benefits to employers of giving people a second chance. Tom KULIKOWSKI is our next speaker. For more than 7 years, Tom has been president and CEO of Penco Products, headquartered in Greenville and with manufacturing in Hamilton in Martin County. Penco makes steel lockers and shelving products. Tom is also the chairman of the boards of the Greenville ENC Alliance and the Pitt County Educational Foundation. He's a graduate of Carnegie Mellon and Widener Universities. Tom, please tell us about your experiences employing the justice involved.
Well, thanks, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. 2 years ago, Penco celebrated its 150th anniversary. So we were founded just a couple years after the end of the Civil War. I like to think that we're not only America's oldest manufacturer of lockers and shelving and pallet rack products, but hopefully also its most trusted. And I'm really here to share with you this morning how a belief in second chances has had a profoundly positive impact on both my company and me. Almost 4 years ago now, I had an awakening that really changed my life and transformed not only how I think, but more importantly, how I act. You see, I had no direct experience with the criminal justice system. I'd never even known anyone that had been incarcerated or convicted of a felony. In fact, the only time I'd ever visited a jail was as part of the Sheriff's Office Academy training program when I had that opportunity to visit. I'd actually never given much thought to the challenges faced by those that had felony convictions on their record. But thankfully that changed, and because it's changed, I'm forever grateful. You see, with a low unemployment rate and businesses like mine struggling to find workers that were going to show up each and every day to put in a good day's work for a good day's pay, I began to read and listen more closely to how former felons were really being left out. So I made the decision to educate myself. And in doing so, I found what Victor had talked about, an initiative called Ban the Box. See, many states, including North Carolina, have a box on applications for employment or housing or government benefits or loans that asks if you've been convicted of a felony? If you check yes, your chances of gaining employment or the benefits for which you've applied are dramatically reduced. So at that time, I had been with the company now for 4 or 5 years, and I hadn't even realized what our own policy was on hiring people that had run afoul of the criminal justice system. So I went to our director of HR and simply asked her, what's our policy on hiring those that have a felony conviction? And she said, it's quite simple. When we receive the application, we toss it into the trash can. Or if they didn't check the box on the application and we get to the background check process, we would simply withdraw the offer. So I went away and started to think about that. And I said, that doesn't seem right, because I don't think all felonies or all felony convictions are created equal. And, sometimes people are a victim of circumstances. So I then went away and came to the belief that there had to be a better way. And Trey, if you could cue up the matrix that I provided, that would be helpful. So what I did, and maybe I worked with our attorneys to develop what I called a decision matrix with the specific felony charges on the one axis and the type of position applied for on the other axis. And we used a simple green, yellow, red coding system, green meaning approve, yellow meaning review, and red meaning deny. What this allowed us to do was to recognize that not all felonies are the same, and the type of position applied for should also be considered. For example, trespassing should probably be treated differently than murder, and disorderly conduct may not be on the same level as sexual assault. Likewise, we may consider an applicant for a position in our factory with a felony conviction, for embezzlement, but probably not so if they had applied to be our chief financial officer. So we started to use this matrix, as you can see here, in early part of 2018. Thanks, Trey. You can go back to the video now. So the second phase of my awakening occurred while I was visiting a customer of ours in Charlotte. I knew that John taught a course at Catawba Correctional Center on how to create a business plan. So our discussion eventually turned to that in his work with the inmates. And he shared with me how in this course, incarcerated men learned how to identify their career interests and build a business plan and identify potential sources of funding so that when they got out of prison, they may have a viable opportunity to turn their dreams into reality. So after I applauded John for what he was doing, he then turned to me and asked, well, how my business was doing. And I shared with them that, we were challenged in a rural community in Martin County to get people that wanted to show up for work each and every day to put in a good day's work for a good day's pay. And that we were entering our busiest time of the year, the summer season. We get really busy because of all the schoolwork we do supplying lockers, and that we were struggling to really find workers to make our products. We historically relied upon temporary workers, and the quality of their work and their dependability was just not the same as that of our regular workers. And he then at that point challenged me. He challenged me to give a consideration to a program I'd never heard of, and that was the work release program. He then said to me, I'm going to connect you with the North Carolina Department of Corrections because I think this would be of value to your business, Tom. I thanked him for what he had done for me. And then on that 4-hour drive back to Greenville from Charlotte, the seed that had planted with me began to take root. And I just couldn't stop thinking about this work release program and how it might be an answer to my prayers. So when I returned, I called a meeting of Penco senior leadership team. And I said, I've got this great idea to bring former felons in the workplace. What do you guys think about this? And they were unanimous. They were unanimous in their disagreement that this was a good idea. But I held fast, sharing what I'd learned from John and what I'd learned from the North Carolina Department of Corrections, and ultimately wore them down and brought them on board with me. So the next step was to meet with those in our factory. Thankfully, they were a much easier sell than the senior leadership team because many of them had shared with me that they'd had a cousin that had been incarcerated. They had a neighbor that had a felony conviction on his record and was struggling, even though he'd been out for 5 years, to get employment that paid more than the minimum wage. Or they'd had an uncle that had been in prison at one time, and he wished he had had the opportunity to gain some skills that he could use once he got out of prison. So the next step then was for us to complete the training that was conducted by the North Carolina Department of Corrections. And we did that. So our hiring of work release inmates began in July of 2018. So 4 colleagues and I personally interviewed all the applicants. We wanted to understand what types of jobs they'd had before they'd run into trouble so that we could place them in opportunities where we could use their skills and then develop a pattern of success in that position. So we started in July of 2018 by hiring 6 men. So we were so satisfied with the early results that we expanded the program to 13 men by the end of that summer. And rather than letting them go, as we typically did with our temporary workers at the end of the busy summer season, we kept them all on board. They stayed on with us throughout the balance of the year. And they worked, continued to work for us until they were released from prison. So when working in prison, let me just share with you a little bit. When working in prison, you may earn on the order of $2 to $3 a day, 28 to 40 cents an hour, depending upon your position. And when working on the outside in work release, as Ms. Jones shared with us, they have to be paid at least minimum wage. Well, we've chosen to pay all of the work release inmates at the prevailing wage for the job that they're doing. So they're making the same pay as the person adjacent to them in whatever role that they have. So that for us, that's a minimum of $11 an hour and significantly more for higher skilled positions. So typically the work release inmates that work for us at Penco are making $600 to more than $800 a week. So I can tell you, we have very few issues with these gentlemen as they don't want to go back to working in the prison for $2 a day. They also enjoy getting out of prison 5 or 6 days a week and interacting with non-prisoners. I want to just share with you 2 stories that hopefully make a point. So it was early in our time with the work release program. It was December of 2018, early December of 2018. And one of the work release gentlemen came up to me and he said, "Mr. Tom, I just want to thank you for what you've done for me." And I said, "Travis, you don't need to thank me. You've earned this opportunity." And he said, "No, sir, you don't understand. This is my 3rd year in prison. And last week I was able to send $1,000 home so that my children have a real Christmas this year." As he told me this, I began to, fight back tears. And I got to tell you, I lost that fight. That was so transformative for me. A little bit later, I was talking with one of the gentlemen we had working for us in the work release program named Jonathan. And I asked Jonathan, I said, "Jonathan, when was the last time you saw your family?" And he sort of put his head down and said, 7 years ago. And I said, "How long have you been incarcerated?" He said, 7 years. He said, "They haven't come to see me. In fact, they've moved away. They've moved to Houston, Texas." But then he picked his head up and he had a big smile on his face. He said, "I've been working here at Penco for about a year now." And he said, "I've saved over $20,000. And he said, "When I get out, I'm going to start my own roofing company." That's how transformative the second chance was. Remarkable stories from average men about opportunity that they've capitalized on with a second chance. So by 2019, we had expanded our work release program to 26 men coming to work for us, eager to work each and every day. They were truly an integral part of our team. When we interviewed the applicants, what we found out was many of them told us that they just moved to the correctional center that we draw from, Caledonia, because they'd heard about Penco. They'd heard about that we were willing to give men a second chance, that we were willing to pay them a prevailing wage, that we were interested in their future success. We've actually hired several of them upon their release from prison. But I got to tell you, in March of last year, in the throes of COVID, we lost all 26 men as they went back into lockdown. But I'm happy to share with you that 3 months ago, we were able to get the men back. They came out of lockdown and we were back up to 26 men once again working for us. And I got to tell you, I don't think it was a coincidence that they came back to us in July. And in August, we had our highest factory productivity month that we've ever measured. So phase 3 of my awakening occurred about 2 years ago. I was reading a book called Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, which was ultimately turned into a feature movie starring Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx. It really shone a bright light on the injustice of the criminal justice system, particularly if you're poor, not well educated, a person of color, and living in the South. And it also, though, highlights how one man can make a difference. So after I knew this book, after I read this book, I knew that I was being called to do more, but I really wasn't quite sure what it was I was being called to do. So upon reflection, it came to me what I was being called to do. And that's exactly what I'm doing here with you this morning. That's to share my overwhelmingly positive experience with you on second chances and my fervent belief now in second chances. So if you think about it, if it were not for second or third chances, or someone seeing more in us than we saw in ourselves, many of us wouldn't be enjoying the success that we have in our careers and in our personal lives. I know that there was someone in my life who saw more in me than I saw in myself. And on 2 occasions, he gave me the opportunity to advance as far as the limits of my abilities would take me. Along the way, I made a bunch of rookie mistakes and some less than ideal business decisions, but he always stood by me. I like to say that he served as both my mentor in the good times and my tour mentor when I was making those rookie mistakes. But I say that in the kindest way possible, for without him, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy the success that I've had in the person that I've become. So in closing, I just want to share with you 3 simple messages today. And the first one is, please don't judge a book by its cover. I was guilty of this. Look beyond the cover of the book to the true contents of the book. Don't be quick to judge or categorize people, as I did when I previously believed that those who were locked up all deserved to be there, and they likely wouldn't amount to much once they were released. I was refusing to open the book as I assumed I wouldn't like what I found inside. I was wrong, and I'm grateful that I've learned that. I need to look beyond the cover of the book. So the second thing is, I'm going to say to you is, don't allow the past to define the future. Look beyond what people have done to what they can do. I think you'll be amazed at what you can find. Mistakes, are just part of life. And we've all make them and make them every day. But mistakes represent some of the best learning experiences that we'll ever have. As I tell our work release team members, I don't care so much what you've done in the past as what you can do with your future. And the third point I want to just share with you today is believe in second chances. We are all imperfect. We will all be in need of forgiveness at some time. We're going to lose our car keys or our cell phone. We're going to stub our toe. We're going to walk into that pane of glass. We're going to do something to embarrass ourselves at some time. And so will others. Sometimes we may even make mistakes that bring us shame, as many of these men have done. But everyone deserves a second chance to clean up their mistakes. Mistakes aren't terminal. We see it each and every day. These are some of the best industrious workers that we have in our facility. And they are truly our brothers. We embrace them just as we do anyone else, any of our other team members. In closing, I'd just like to leave you with one simple thought. And that is, everyone makes mistakes in life, but that doesn't mean they have to pay for them for the rest of their life. So it's been a pleasure to be with you. I hope I've given you a renewed belief in second chances.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that fantastic comments and your experiences with PINCO and some of the programs that have been discussed today. LAKESHIA and Victor, thank you guys as well. We'll now transition to any questions, as we already have a few in the chat. Before we get to that, I do want to mention that this is a recorded session and there are some resources that I will share in a follow-up email. And so please be on the lookout for that. That should go out sometime tomorrow. So first, let's go back early on. There were some questions. Beth Bucksott asked, are participants willing to relocate? Now, LAKESHIA, I believe this was during your presentation.
Yes, they can relocate to any prison that is closer to where your employment is. That is minimum custody.
Got it. Thank you, LAKESHIA. And Tom, you answered this question, but if there's any other comments from LAKESHIA or Victor on this, do workers get to retain any of the associated wages?
Yes.
My understanding, Victor, I'll defer to you, but my understanding is that they get to keep most of those, other than they pay for room and board, transportation, and anything that they have restitutions, fines, and fees. Then they can direct the rest of it as they choose.
Okay, so he answered it, but yes, in the I think another component to are they willing to relocate? A lot of the concerns that we in the reentry process is trying to alleviate some of the stressors of relocating, such as housing and transportation. While they're in the work release program, these issues are covered. So it's a comfortable fit for them to work in any company. But after they're released, they may have come from somewhere on the other side of the state. They may want to continue employment, but they have to get housing. So we have to work on such things as housing discrimination and also housing availability, and depending on where it is. And so we're doing what we can to alleviate that problem.
Thank you, Victor. And a follow-up on transportation. How do the prisoners or workers get to the job?
Well, sometimes we have people that provide transportation, public transportation. Right now, that is kind of sort of stifled a little, but we're still working on rekindling that. Our policy supports that anyone that has a fairly clean driving record, a valid driver's license, and a certain amount of insurance on their vehicle, they can provide transportation. And right now, they are not required to be fully vaccinated, because anyone that doesn't have to come into the prison are not mandated to be vaccinated. But if you have to go into the prison, then that's when that mandate comes into play.
Got it. Thank you, LaKeisha. Carolyn has raised her hand, so I believe she wants to ask a question. Carolyn, you can unmute and ask your question if you'd like to.
Yes, good morning, everyone. This question is for Tom. And Tom, I am so sorry. Not only can I not spell your last name, but I'm having problems pronouncing it too. The question for transportation to the work site, because you have so many individuals that you are employing, 26, what is the standard, I guess, or the basic type of transportation your individuals use to get to the job site?
Yes, they come in large vans, 13 men to a van. So they're transported. We draw from Caledonia in Halifax. Mm-hmm. So they come to our job site every morning, and they're picked up at their end of their shifts by the van. So we have two vans of 13 men each. And they do pay, the men do have to pay out of what they make for transportation.
And so the vans, I'm sorry, and the vans are provided by, is it a private company or is it a?
Yep, it's individuals. We've worked through the prison and they've arranged it. So yes,
I see.
We did not have to arrange it ourselves, but we worked with them and told them how many people would want, and they got the appropriate size vans.
Thank you. Nice presentation. Very good.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think I missed any questions. I don't see any others. I did see a question about contact information, so I'm going to share all the speakers' contact information here in a second, so everyone has that.
Trey, could I mention one thing about transportation?
Please do.
All right. Transportation has always been kind of like a hiccup for us. So what many facilities have done was people look at the local resource reentry council. Some churches provided. Some retired from state employees provided. Just for example, at New Hanover Correctional Center, they have an ex-employee that no longer works for the state, but he saw the need and he just got a 15-passenger van and started providing all work release transportation for all 120 workers that they had. And they do pay a fee from $5 on. Some people don't charge. Even some employers, if you know their shifts, some employers will volunteer to transport somebody back and forth to work, because that's a little extra money in their pocket. So we are flexible with that.
Thank you, LaKeisha. So I've got everyone's contact information up now. I will also send this out afterwards in the follow-up email for everyone that attended and everyone that registered. But I don't see any other questions for now. So if there are no other comments or questions from the audience or speakers, Mark, oh, I see Carolyn would ask one more question. Carolyn, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that just must be my hand.
Oh, no,
popping up.
no worries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, and now, Mark, you can close us out.
Thanks, Trey. First of all, thank you for everybody for joining this webinar today. I found it very, very informative. And Tom, I feel like I've been to church. I'll tell you, your testimony, I'll call it that, it was fantastic. And you know, we worship a God of second, third, fourth chances, and you're living that in your company. I would encourage anybody that's thinking about being participants in this program to call Tom and just talk to him about what his experience has been. I love this. Like I said, this could not have come at a better time with employment the way it is, and also just being able to help out a community of people that do deserve second, third chances. Again, I'd like to thank the speakers today, and also again our sponsors of this webinar. We'll look forward to the next one, and we'll announce that in the upcoming near future. And I hope everybody has a great day. And if you've got any questions about what we do at the NC East Alliance, you can contact Trey or Van, or you can contact me as well. We're always looking for folks that have a passion for Eastern North Carolina, and this webinar, I think, is a testimony to that passion, that we can improve the opportunities for all of those folks who live in Eastern North Carolina. So thanks again, and enjoy your day.